I like how things are going for a lot of people, alongside understanding that I'm really pleased that I'm not growing up right now as a young person or a teenager faced with what they have to see day in, day out.
You're a freaking midwife. I think that's brilliant. You're a midwife that's come in to this time birth a new world, to be here for the birth of a new world and birth of new being, new
Yeah,
souls coming
absolutely.
in, who've also chosen to come in at this time to experience this transformation in the world.
Hello and welcome to my yellow sofa. I am Tammy. We are joined by the lovely Iona, who is a confidence coach and a counsellor and soon to be releasing her new course. So hello Iona, how are you today?
Hi Tammy, I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you getting on?
Excellent. So I am excited to hear about this new course of yours first and foremost. What's it called? What's it about?
The course is called Feeling Safe to be Seen, and it's all about feeling your most authentically confident self, putting yourself out there, feeling safe to be seen in the world in terms of like relationships, career, money, going to the gym, whatever it is, whatever you want to experience more freedom with.
Love it, love it, love it. How long is it and what do we need to do? And we'll go back over this later. So we'll start with it and we'll finish it to make sure that everybody's crystal clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts on the 3rd of May, which is in a few weeks' time. It's my first course that I've delivered in a year. I've really been focusing on confidence, teaching people the difference between self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-concept, which I can go into a little bit in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like one of my favorite subjects. We're kind of cut from the same cloth anyway, so we come from like really similar thought processes. And Iona and I have been friends for a few years now. We kind of met up through this collective of people that were tuned into alignment and finding the best versions of themselves and expansion and just living a really nice, gorgeous existence. And we all kind of move through this different healing kind of program together and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And then within that, we come and go out of each other's lives a little bit, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been such an interesting few years, hasn't it, Tammy? Like
Yeah, it's been crazy.
We met in 2020, just when the world like shut down.
Yeah.
And it was such an awesome opportunity for people like you and me who are quite spiritually focused, I would say. Like we were more, I would say that you and I and the type of people who we met throughout that time are more emotionally led. We get tangled up is the phrase I like to use. We get tangled up in our heads, but actually, because that's the way we've been programmed to live. We've been programmed and taught to live with our heads, our critical thinking minds, but actually we're more suited to live through our emotions and through our feelings and doing what we feel is good instead of what we think we should be doing. And that's one of the things that I love to teach, using our intuition, using our emotions to guide ourselves, and also as well working through difficult emotions, which is what you and I learned really how to do in 2020, was use our emotions to empower ourselves, not only ourselves but other people as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we really did. And one of the things that I really remember about that period of lockdown was suddenly not having to go and do those day-to-day things that we was like working and taking the kids to school and whatever. It really gave us an opportunity to start to live by impulse only. And that was like a huge lesson that I took from that year, was to really take a step back out of the mundane of life and just feel into what it was that I wanted to do next for me. Just even if it's the most simple things day to day. And it's not just about the big stuff, is it? It's all these like kind of pivotal little choice moments within your day that really are the catalyst to whether we feel good within ourselves or not, or productive or not, or happy or not. And I think living by impulse gives you that perspective of putting yourself first and listening to what your needs are. And that like does a huge boost in your kind of spiritual, emotional well-being.
I love it. And that first year of the lockdowns, it was really difficult for so many people, but for lots of other people, it was really helpful because it allowed us to come out of our routines. And for those of us who are more spiritually aware or more in touch with our emotions, more in tune with our emotions, it allowed us to stop using our heads and start using more of our feelings and being more impulse driven or intuition led. Because that's what animals do in the wild.
Yeah.
Animals don't use their critical thinking brains to make decisions. They use their feeling, emotional, physical bodies to make decisions. And yeah, okay, they go from eating to sleeping to, you know, depending on what species they are, to hanging out in a tree. We don't do that. We have things to do, like jobs and kids and things, you know, dishes to wash and laundry to do,
Yeah, all the
ironing
fun
to
stuff.
do, all the fun stuff. But actually, that time that we had, that time off from the break that we had from coming out of our minds and into our bodies, for a lot of people was such a challenging transition, because a lot of people had used work and used doing to escape their feelings, because you and I both know that we live in a world of difficult circumstances and traumatic experiences. We're not equipped in how to deal with our emotions and work through challenging experiences, circumstances, and traumatic things. We don't have the emotional equipment. We've not been taught. Human beings don't come with a handbook. And for hundreds of years, we've been programmed and encouraged to dissociate from our feelings into our heads. It's not safe to be in our physical bodies. It's not safe to be in our feelings. One of the things that I love to teach in my practice and my coaching practice is how to get back into the physical and emotional body, and how to remember our true self, because we come into the world as confident, bubbly, excited, bold, outgoing, enthusiastic, creative children. And things happen to us, traumatic things happen. We get criticized and judged and rejected and abandoned. And we then think that that is because of us, because we are bad or wrong. And we reject ourselves. We reject that true part of ourselves, that optimistic, that bold, that bubbly, that confident part of ourselves. And we retreat up into our minds, into our critical thinking minds. And it's no longer safe to be in our emotional body. It's no longer safe to feel how we feel and use our feelings to make decisions, because we did in the past and we got shamed, or we got criticized, or we got judged. And I freaking love to teach people how to go back into that it can be safe again, and how to make it safe again, and how to live your life from that place of feeling, because it feels way more satisfying than using your brain all the time.
Absolutely. And I think it's almost, when you kind of see it and know it now, it doesn't make any sense why we're not taught it when we're little, like how you process emotions. You know, the work I do with kids now, the majority of them I'm seeing with like extensive anxiety issues, you know, whether that's health anxiety, social anxiety, it's all bubbling. And they're little, like they're like 6, 7, 8 upwards, which is it's tiny. And I'm really aware that we're a lot better these days with kids' mindfulness and mental health and things, but it still isn't taught. Like, it's the parents need to be taught how to teach their children how to manage and process their emotions. This is the issue, isn't it? It's everybody's responsibility to help another human being to tap into how they look after their mental health and why they need to look after their mental health. I mean, the clients that we're seeing now all the time, really, they're going through these processes of undoing and losing emotions and things. And I wonder how many of them are actively teaching their children to do the same thing, you know, good ways to manage emotions, and that it's actually really okay to feel all of these things, but it's not so okay to hold on to them. And it's just this, I love this topic, and I think your course is going to be exceptionally good. In fact, I'm very confident it's going to be like super, super good, and it's really needed.
Oh, thanks, Tammy. Thanks for saying that. That's lovely. Yeah, I want to make a distinction between mental health and emotional health, because I think this past few years has taught us certainly that it's more acceptable for people to talk about their mental health in the world now. It's become a more acceptable topic, whereas even 5-10 years ago, mental health wasn't really spoken about. But one of the positive things that came out of the lockdowns was mental health. People actually, do you know what? Like I don't feel good today, but actually that is emotional health. Right? We have physical health, mental health, and emotional health. And people get confused, they get stuck because we've spent so long in our critical thinking minds. We've spent so long overthinking that we forget that we have an emotional body. Emotions literally mean energy in motion. When we have feelings, that is emotion, that is energy moving around our bodies. And when we stop feeling, or we suppress our feelings, or we dissociate, and dissociate means disassociate, we lock ourselves out of our feeling body, we jump up into our heads and we start overthinking. And I feel and I know from a professional perspective that that is because we are overthinking. We get stuck in our heads and we get stuck in anxiety. That then has a ripple out effect, a knock-on effect to our physical bodies, and starts creating symptoms of anxiety in our physical and emotional bodies. So all of our bodies we have a spiritual body as well, but I like to just stick to the three because it's, they're getting too out there for people,
we'll
right?
be here forever.
We're talking about spiritual body. Totally. So we've got the physical, mental, and emotional body, and they all work in tandem together. They're all in sync. They're all like very harmonious, and they work independently but also cooperatively. They all work together like as one unit. And it's so beautiful when we start to address our physical health, right? So eating well and exercising, looking after our physical bodies. When we start to address our mental health, right? So choosing and observing our thoughts. So observing what our thoughts are. And just when you were talking about parents and children there, if you can think about, and this is another topic that I teach a lot, is our thoughts and our feelings have generally been passed on to us by our parents and our family members, and our culture and our community. So your thoughts, especially your thoughts about yourself, which is your self-concept, right? What you think of yourself, actually comes from the people who you spend the most time with. And for the first 7 to 20, however many years of your life, that was probably your parents or your guardians. So whatever they thought of themselves has been projected onto you, and that's how you now think of yourself. Becoming aware of what we think of ourselves is really, really important especially when it comes to self-confidence and working on the mental, emotional, and physical body. I believe that awareness is the first step on the path of empowerment. Once we become aware of what we've got going on inside our heads, how we think about things, how we think about ourselves, how we think about other people, how we think about our circumstances, that's really powerful. And we can start to observe and become aware of patterns. Like if I think that I am a piece of crap and I tell myself that every day, and I look in the mirror and I say, Iwana, you look like a piece of crap today, or oh, nothing works out for me and this is just rubbish. And it's not, everything's going to go badly. The banks are going to fail. I'm going to lose my job. Then that has a knock-on effect with the emotional body, because we start to feel anxious, we start to feel depressed, we start to feel hopeless and powerless. Like, I have no power here. There's nothing I can do to make this better. There's no hope. I don't know. There's no hope for me and my family. And then the physical body gets affected. So we start to have the anxiety symptoms like panicking, tight breath, tight physical muscles, aches and pains because we're walking around our day so tight and wrapped up. Becoming aware of what we've got going on at a mental level by looking at the self-concept is super powerful. And then we've got the self-esteem, which is how we feel about ourselves. So how I feel about myself, if I feel like I'm a piece of crap and I feel powerless and I feel hopeless and helpless and like nothing's working out, then that again has a knock-on effect with my mental health and my physical health. And the self-confidence is how we show up in the world with our physical body. It's the energy that we do the things that we want to do. So if I'm feeling like crap, if I'm feeling like a piece of crap, and if I'm feeling powerless and helpless and hopeless, and I go and do the thing, like I go to my job, then I'm going to struggle. I'm going to have anxiety. I'm going to feel like it's not safe for me to put myself out there. Because why would I bother? Our mental, emotional, and physical health is so important. And a lot of my clients, I see them about their physical health. Like a lot of them want to transform their physical body. I love this topic of body consciousness, of body image, because you can be whatever size you are and still be unbelievably beautiful, because it's all about the energy that you're showing up with. It's all about the energy that you bring to the world. But if we want to transform ourselves, if we want to feel better in our physical body, because it's exciting for us to do so, then we can. But a lot of people don't feel safe to do so because they feel like perhaps they may be criticized or called out and look like an idiot in the gym, or feel like their weight is like a safety blanket. It keeps them invisible because it's not safe to be seen, because they might start getting the wrong kind of attention from people. They might be shamed. So things like that, I find that really, really fascinating, and I freaking love to teach on that topic. And many of my clients who've had that experience, I always ask them, what was your family's perspective of the physical body? And many, especially the women, tell me that they had a parent who was critical of their physical body, or critical of other people's physical bodies, that they felt like they had to dress a certain way, or that they couldn't do certain things, or they weren't good enough, made to feel like they weren't good enough. And that's why it's not safe and put themselves out there. And we, that from the work that we do, because we do similar work, we question that belief system. We question that belief system. Like, who says that that has to be your truth? Who says that this size is wrong or bad? And so many of us, since we were little, like the brain is its most plastic between the ages of 0, pre-birth, I would say, to like even in our 20s, our brain's still growing, right? So when we're little, our parents or our guardians, whoever's raising us, their word is gospel. Their word is the Lord. The word is like the truth. And we've basically been molded and shaped by whatever they have said and whatever they have done. So it takes some time for us to uncondition ourselves from that programming. Once we start to unravel it and become aware, because awareness is the first step in the path of empowerment. Once we start to empower ourselves by looking at what we've got going on at a mental, emotional, and sometimes physical level, we can start to question, where did it come from? Why is it here? And every time we start to have those thoughts, we can then go, okay, this is not my thought. This thought belonged to this parent or this teacher or this person in our community. Is this my ultimate truth? Is this coming from my true self? Probably not. Has this been projected onto me by someone else? Probably yes. So what do I decide is true for myself?
We're living in a really tricky world with like social media and all the online stuff for kids growing up, and what they're seeing isn't real. So you've got like, I feel like there are two kind of waves going on here. One of them is that this kind of acceptance of diversity has bubbled up amongst so many young people now, and actually it's more normalized regarding what you identify as, and it's okay to look like this and feel like this and all of that stuff. And that's a really nice concept to help these kids live in this very bizarre social media fueled world that they live in. And the other one is, I really like that we can teach kids this self-empowerment stuff from a very young age. So actually when they are faced with all of this stuff growing up, that actually they've got the ability to do exactly what you've been talking about, to take a step back and to just think, right, do I align with that? Is that really me? Does that even matter? You know, all of these things are really, really important in their self-development in terms of their self-esteem, self-confidence growing up. And it's kind of fascinating to watch these little pockets of things unfold. And I don't know if that's an age thing, which sucks if it is, because there's no way I identify with being the age that I am. Or is it just because we are just so involved in that world of kind of self-development, and our understanding of how we work is just so integrated in us now that it almost gives us the ability to just not participate in things at all, but to just observe them and watch how the unfolding is going for like all of these different sorts of people and issues. And I like how things are going for a lot of people, alongside understanding that I'm really pleased that I'm not growing up right now as a young person or a teenager faced with what they have to see day in, day out. But actually the work that we do and others like us do, I think is going to have such a huge positive impact on so many people. And that ripple effect then into their sort of adulthood, and as they pass it on to others, it's quite heartwarming. I like that we're all in this and we've all got slightly different methods and different ways of working with people, but actually the root of it is always really the same, isn't it? It's self-empowerment. It's just enabling somebody to really kind of listen to themselves and to understand what it is that they need.
100%, Tammy. The time for us to rely on others to show us the way is over. It's complete. If you from the spiritual perspective, we chose to come into the world at this time. You're a freaking midwife. I think that's brilliant, right? That you're a midwife that's come in to this time, birth a new world, to be here for the birth of a new world and birth of new beings, of new souls coming in, who've also chosen to come in at this time to experience this transformation in the world. From a astrological perspective, like we're transitioning age, we're transitioning from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age, and okay, that transition birthing process takes 100 years or so. Really, it kind of started speeding up around the millennium, and we as millennials, we have experienced that the huge shift from no internet to internet, right? I remember having a house phone. Yeah. That was it, right? So we're now on dial-up, right? But now we have like
a teletext. I used to love watching the teletext.
Remember that game that you could play on CFAX? It was brilliant.
Yeah.
We have literally, we've observed, we have been here to observe the change and the transformation into this information age and into this age of empowerment and age of enlightenment. So things are speeding up for us. Like still, birth, not easy. It's not an easy experience for any human being to go through. So it comes with its changes and its transitions, which is what we're experiencing. If you look at it from a scientific perspective, we have been taught a very materialistic, evolutionistic kind of perspective where things are done a certain way, thoughts are thought a certain way, science has to be a certain way. For us to believe that we know all there is to know is extremely small-minded and kind of narcissistic as well. Like science believes it knows the most. We're also making a transition from the Newtonian perspective to more of a quantum perspective, which again is super exciting.
Yeah.
And that is the Piscean age, right? Going back to the astrological perspective from the scientific perspective, like people poo-poo astrology and stuff all the time, right? But there's a reason why every government on the planet hires astrologers. They do. That you look it up, it's proof that important people who make the decisions want to know what's going on out there because it affects our consciousness on such a huge scale. And people don't want to believe, people want to think it's just like nonsense. But that big an energy body, like a planet or a moon, it can't move and do things without affecting us. The Piscean age, the last couple of how many thousand years it's been, has been very much all about control, rigid, right? It's been about like, this is what you do and this is how it's done. Whereas now we're moving into an age where it's more fluid. It's all about choice and it's all about empowerment and becoming sovereign, making your own decisions. I call it panning for gold effect. When you're panning for gold, you have to sift up all the mud and the sludge in order to see the gold, in order to rinse the gold, because the gold is there and amongst the sludge and amongst the mud. And as we're panning for the gold, and I've been panning for gold, I freaking love it. It's so fun. We have to look at the crap, right? You have to go through the crap. There's no going around the crap. There's no going under the crap. There's no going around it. You have to go through the crap to find the gold. And that's what we're doing right now. Like, I feel like everything is getting brought up to the surface. We're talking about a lot of subjects that were previously thought of as taboo, right? Like trans, like drag, like age of consent, abortions, things like that. These are all things that were just not spoken about. And a lot of them are feminine based, feminine energy, which of course has been suppressed for the past, I don't know, couple thousand years. So in order for us to become sovereign beings, in order for us to become like empowered beings, we have to go through the sludge. We have to look at the mud and the murk. And this is what we do when you and I are doing our coaching work with people. We have to become aware of what's not working in order for us to decide that that's not what we want to do anymore, right? Like that Abraham Hicks saying, sometimes in order for you to know what you do want, you have to know what you don't want. And now
Yeah.
we know what we don't want. Now we know what we do want. So it's easier for us to stand up and say, I don't want this anymore. I want a different thing. I want to experience a different thing. We've created these neural pathways, right? All of our current thoughts and feelings are neural pathways. And I associate neural pathways with paths in the snow, trodden paths in the ground that people have walked on over and over again and created a pathway to a thought, to a feeling. We have to decide that we don't want to go that way anymore and create a new pathway. We're creating a new path in the snow, we're creating a new path in the dirt, but we're going to want to go that way because that way looks easier. We can see where we're going. That old way, like that old pathway. But actually, this new way, it might be a quicker way. It might be a way that takes us via, like, I don't know, like a rainbow bridge with like some sweets and candy and, like, yeah, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take as long as it takes, just like when you're birthing a child. It takes as long as it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's interesting because even as a coach, and we teach this and we live it and breathe it, and we really do live it. And I think some people have got this kind of misconception that actually once you do an element of healing, well, that's it, you're healed. But actually we know it really doesn't go like that. And our journey is always an evolution, and we might heal, I'd use the word lightly, we might heal an element of ourselves, but actually sometimes that just makes space for the next thing to come up to the surface, and then the next thing to come up to the surface. And I think when people start getting into this journey initially, and I definitely did when I first joined the collective and had my first big shift and big, like, huge emotional healing happen, I was like, oh, that's it, I'm healed, great, I can manifest everything now, my life's going to be like this and this. And actually the fall down the other side of that was significant, because I hadn't actually ever stopped to think about, this is just the beginning. This isn't the end. You were just not aware of anything before and just living in a state of doing and existing. And now you're in a state of being and living and creating. And in fact, to get all of these gorgeous experiences in your life, whether they are deemed more negative or positive, actually that period of that healing evolution is just like this. And it needs to be, because it's always expansive. It always brings you just the juiciest stuff in life. But it always comes down to your perception of it, doesn't it? And where you allow your mind to settle. It cannot, and still, even for me today, when something hits me, it can still take me a few days of having an absolute mental breakdown before I think, oh shit, yeah, I'm just in another like healing phase. I need to sit back a second, observe what my thoughts have been for the past few weeks, feel what I'm feeling in my body, and then just let's see what happens. And often, as soon as you get into that creative vibration and that proactive vibration, things generally fix themselves fairly quickly after that. But going back to what you were saying about how, people showing up in the world with suddenly all this turmoil that's just come up to the surface from seemingly nowhere, it has a lot to answer for in terms of suicide rates and people's real difficulty with their mental and emotional health, is that they just don't understand what's happening to them. And actually, a lot of the things that we do is about educating people to understand what's going on. You're not going crazy. This thing from the past hasn't just blown up for no particular reason. We're in a process of transition. We're in a period of transformation. In order for us to kind of move in this fluid motion, we have to lose some shit that we're carrying. So it's going to come up. But to let go of it is just I think one of the hardest things to do for a lot of people are okay to face their trauma, but it's the letting go, it's the deprogramming of these neuro pathways that have just fired constantly forever. And it's just helping people to navigate their way around that system. That's a really nice part of, I think, what we do with our clients.
It really is. This is one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I've been there. I've had my extremely low points in life, and I didn't ever think I was going to come out of it. I didn't want to. Like, I didn't want to come out of it, I'll be honest with you. I have come out of it, right? We have our moments. I have my moments still, right? we were,
Yeah,
we were chatting last week, like, wow. Like, I want to just say, like, how important vocal ventilation can be. If you have someone that you can ventilate with, like, it can be, because again, it's energy and motion, right? And we have to get it out. We have to get it out. And that's why I love the work that I do. That's why I became a counselor. Like, I started my first counseling business in 2009. 2010, not at my lowest. I was coming out of my lowest point, but I had a suicide experience. I lived in London. I was working in the fashion industry. I had an extremely hard time there, and I didn't want to go on. I was extremely depressed, and I couldn't. There was all of this stuff happening in the world. It was the financial crash, and I really, really struggled with a lot of previous trauma, and I didn't want to go on. But thankfully I am still here. And from that point onwards, I decided that I had to make it about service. I had to be of service, because if I was going through that feeling, then other people must have been too. So I set up my first business, which was a creative therapy business, and I ended up serving thousands of people across the whole of the UK and in some European countries as well with it. But then I decided to close it in 2019 because I felt like I was limited with the work that I could do. Like, I had done some counseling therapy training, but I had to cart this heavy kit because I was a creative therapist. So I had all this like craft and creative stuff around with me all the time, and it was just cumbersome and annoying. And I felt like I had all this stuff to let go of, right? Physical stuff and emotional stuff that I wanted to just drop so that I could elevate and become the next version of myself to really be of service. So that's what I did. And that's when I met you in 2020, when we did that collective together and those courses together. It's really important that we come to terms with our mental and emotional health. Like, it's not just a mental thing, it's an emotional thing too. And coherence, coming to coherence with our mental and emotional and physical body, it is empowering. But as one of my mentors, Melanie Ann Layer, says, it's growth and evolution over a lifetime. It's growth and evolution over a lifetime. It's not just an overnight job. We chose to be here. I chose to be here. You chose to be here. Whoever's watching this, we chose to be here at this time so that we could transform old energy, because we're coming out of an old time. We're going into a new time. We chose to come here to do this work. You and I are, and whoever's watching here, whether you realize it or not, we're transforming generations of trauma, generations of old programming. We're transforming hundreds of, if not thousands of years of ways of being into a new way of being, which is a human being, not a human doing. If you think about your family members, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, and how they couldn't just be. They weren't allowed to just be born and exist. They had to work, right? Especially our great-great-great-great-grandparents, who probably worked as children. Child exploitation, right? That's horrific, and it's still going on in countries today. That we can't just come into this world and be. We have to do. We have to prove ourselves. We have to make ourselves useful, and we have to earn our place here, which I think is really being transformed by so many people, and perhaps why a lot of people are having a lot of mental, emotional, and physical health challenges, because we're finally realizing why. We're like, why do I have to do this job for 50 hours a week, literally just to pay my bills? I don't even have much money left over to do the things I want to do. I only get 28 days a year off, or whatever it is now. Retirement age is going up. Why? Why do I have to do that? And I think a lot of people are feeling the burn from it. You know, people are burning out, and they always have been, but people are starting to like really question why we are human doings and we're not allowed to be just human beings. And when you do this work, when you do the work that we do, it really, we question why we do what we do, right? We really like, why am I doing this thing? That was my motivation for way back when I was really depressed and suicidal in 2009 and the years previous to that. Why am I doing this? Why am I working 3 jobs just to get by? Why do I have to prove myself? Why do I feel like I have to prove my worth, prove that I'm good enough, prove that I'm a good person? Am I living in shame? Do I feel like I'm bad, flawed, and wrong? If that is the case, why? Who told me that? Who made me believe that I'm bad, flawed, and wrong? What society? Was it society that told me that I'm bad, flawed, and wrong because I'm a woman, because I'm a certain gender or orientation, or because of my sexuality, because of the color of my skin? Why do I have to prove myself? And I think that's one of the main reasons why we're seeing so much turmoil in the world, is because people have had enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Another aspect of that as well, which I came across a lot, is it's really interesting to see people who are more spiritually aware and spiritually tuned and open to those that really aren't, and have no concept of having a spiritual self, and don't even tolerate the idea that there's a spiritual self. I think there's a lot of souls in this world that struggle or have been struggling with living in this very much a human doing existence, because they feel the discord, that it doesn't align with what they feel is their natural self, which is their spiritual self. And I think there's a lot of souls that I've come across who have gone through periods of feeling suicidal because they don't feel like they belong here. And that's their words a lot of the time. I just don't feel like I belong on this planet. There's something doesn't feel right. It's just like, it's just not lined up, isn't it? There isn't this perfect balance between your human self and your spiritual self. You seem to tip into one or the other. I think those of us, well, for me personally, when I was very much in human mode for a good chunk of my life, well into my 20s. By the time I was in my 20s, that was my first real kind of wake-up call to actually there's something more that's going on. And then I got heavily into the spiritual side. But such a big portion of my life has been in my head, because it's almost escaping, it's almost wanting to tap into this spiritual world, which feels external to us, but of course we know it's all within us. I think that has a huge impact on people and how they're dealing with things. And that is definitely something that I noticed when the shop was open. People would just find themselves in it without really knowing why they've walked in here. It's because they feel the pull of something that is bigger than themselves, something that's within them that they don't know what it is. They can't describe it. They can't tell you what it is that they're feeling. They just know that they're trying to access help from somebody that's in an area of this world that they're absolutely clueless about. And I like that, because I like when somebody is really not aware of their spiritual side and they find themselves on my doorstep, so to speak, that this inner being from inside of them has managed to just get their attention enough so they feel like there's something bigger than them and they want to go and explore it. And there's nothing more beautiful than somebody awakening to the fact that they're actually a spiritual human being first and foremost. And I love it when people tap into that.
Yeah, we are spirits inhabiting physical bodies. We're not physical bodies with spirits. And this is what I find, I love it as well. When I started getting into especially the counseling side of things, I did a lot of psychoeducation, did a lot of studying and learning about the human brain and why it is the way that it is, and the emotions. And there is evidence that people who are from a young age, who are more into spiritual things, were brought up in environments where they weren't supported as much, or they were rejected and denied and dismissed and abandoned, and they needed answers, that there must be more. Many people who are more spiritual have experienced traumatic circumstances in their early lives, whether that is emotionally traumatic or physically traumatic, right? I work with a lot of people who have experienced emotional neglect. growing up, and they had a roof over their head, they had meals on the table, but they didn't necessarily have the emotional support that they required. They weren't listened to as much, rejected and abandoned emotionally. They didn't have as much physical affection growing up, which is what kids and babies really need. They need physical affection, to be held and cuddled and told that they are important. The universe revolves around the child when it's little, and that's just how it is, and that's how it has to be. The child needs that validation. The child needs that love and care, and to be told that they are important. Just looking at your sign there that says, I must be important. Yes, that child needs to know that
I
they
am
are
important.
Yeah, they are important. And so many of the people that I work with have a belief that they are not important, because they were not made to feel like they were important growing up. And I feel like that is unfortunate for spirituality, because so many of us who find spirituality, or who find metaphysics, who are into metaphysical stuff, we've gone through some stuff, right? We've gone through some difficult stuff. And we're using metaphysics and spirituality as another way to find answers, to feel like we are important, to feel like we have a place in the world. People who are non-spiritual, who didn't have the same beliefs as me, and you might feel the same, Tammy, but I used to get really triggered by people who thought that what I was doing was silly, or nonsense, or magical, or whatever. I used to get really defensive about it, because I felt like it was part of my identity.
Yeah.
Actually, now I've done the work. Now I've done the emotional work on feeling safe to be seen as a spiritual person. Whenever I have a conversation with somebody who's not spiritual, I love to get their perspective, because I want to know what their perspectives are. I want to know, I'm interested in how they feel about it and what they think about it. And I think that's really important. When we start to do the work on feeling safe to be ourselves, and feeling safe to be seen, no matter what our opinions are, no matter what our perspectives are, as long as we're not hurting other people with our opinions, or pushing our opinions on others, it can be really interesting. And I feel like that's what we need to do. We need to become secure with our own perspectives and our own beliefs, so that when we have a conversation with somebody who doesn't think the same way as us, because as you know, the world right now, so many perspectives and different belief systems are just like butting together and creating like heavy energy. Everyone feels like their identity is at risk, because we've never been taught that actually we're important, and that what we have to say is important. But it's okay for someone else to have a different opinion. Like the inner child work that I do, I have an affirmation that I use with my clients when we're doing the inner child work, when we go back and we do the work with our inner child feeling safe to be seen, or certainly the inner child feels safe to be seen. We say it's okay for someone to have a different opinion to us, that it's okay for someone, it's safe for someone to have a different opinion than us. That doesn't mean that what we think is bad, and that doesn't mean that what we believe is wrong. It just means that it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really learned that more so lately, I think, than ever. And I was definitely always looking to protect what it is that I believed in, and first of all wanted to promote it and try. I was such an exciting world to be a part of. I wanted everybody to see what I could see. You know, when I was doing mediumship and I could do all these readings, and I just wanted everybody to see it and to know it, because I thought it's so magical. Like, why aren't you as excited about this as I am? And it took a long time for me to realize that this is my journey, my perspectives, my belief systems. And actually, it's totally okay that that person doesn't feel the same, or doesn't get it, or doesn't see it. And B, actually, it's really okay that we've all got different opinions about things. And it's only since being in my current relationship, this is the first relationship I think I've had my whole life where both of us are really okay with each other having different opinions on things. And actually, when we come together with ideas, although granted a lot of the time we're pretty matched on things. But when we come together with different ideas, we're just so respectful of each other with them. There isn't this battle and this need to kind of outdo each other with like, I'm right, no, I'm right, you know, my opinion is more important than you. And it's a nice way to be, because you almost open up the conversation to explore and express different things, and that, you know, you're bringing different things into your world, into your mind. It's all expansive, and it's very respectful. And I totally get what you're saying, because I was definitely one of those people that was fanatical that others should see what I see because it's just so good. I'm not like that anymore.
And getting defensive, right? Feeling defensive.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
When someone questions it, it's like they're questioning my identity.
Yeah, it's like having a personal attack.
That's
how I used to feel.
Yeah,
it was like, that's exactly how it was. It was like having a personal attack, and actually it never really was anything like that. It's just what my mind had created.
Yeah. And if we ask the question that we often ask in our coaching practices, what must I believe is true about myself to feel like this is a personal attack? And that usually the answer for me, certainly, I don't know if it's the same for you, but it was that I am wrong, or that I am bad, or that what I believe to be true is wrong or bad. And that, again, is like, who gets to decide that?
Especially when it comes to raising kids and kind of neglecting aspects of their emotional needs and things. It's really important for, I think, parents and people generally to understand that you don't have to have all of this stuff from actual proper trauma. You know, you don't have to have been through some extensively horrible situation to have emotional issues. You know, when I reflect on my days of motherhood, when there were like 6 little kids running around and I was trying to go to uni to be a midwife, that was a 3-hour drive away, and constantly knackered. And, you know, how many times must I have kind of either snapped at them, or they've lovingly tried to show me a picture and I've just been like, oh, I'm too tired for that right now. You know, those are the pivotal moments, that those little moments that you don't even consider. You're on the phone and your kid is trying to get your attention and you're just like, not now, and you're engaged, and you don't even think about that energetic emotional impact that child has just gone through and internalized as like this, oh my god, she doesn't love me. Of course, as an adult we can rationalize all of those things, but as kids we don't. And it's kind of getting people to understand, think outside of the bigness of emotional trauma, because actually a lot of it comes from really insignificant little comments that as a parent you probably would never even remember you said or did to your child. And it's about just mindful parenting, and that's kind of what I practice now, is to just try and be calmer, be kind of a little bit more in the moment, and just, if you fuck up, which you probably will because we are human, it's really okay to go back and apologize and say, I'm really sorry, I was so busy, show me now. It's really important that you show me what you want to. And that's how you correct that energy that they've taken on as a child. And if we all just knew that and applied that, half of these things that we're seeing in people, they just wouldn't exist right now. Teachers as well, you know, anybody absolutely. Who's kind of has got a responsibility, or you know, has got kiddies around them, you're shaping them with every word, with every action, everything you do is shaping their little minds every second. And just be mindful of that. You're not going to be perfect, but you can definitely make an impact, and you can definitely correct something. And that's the important thing. Don't just try and be like a perfect parent. Just correct it, you know, if you feel like you've done something.
I love the importance of apologizing to children, because it means that it makes it okay for us to make mistakes as human beings.
Yeah.
And we are mistake-making machines. We can't. Mistakes are our greatest learning opportunity. And children make so many mistakes when they're learning to walk, when they're learning to read or write. And as human beings, if we were shamed for making mistakes and we've internalized that shame and we're projecting onto others that it's wrong for them to make mistakes, but actually mistakes are so powerful. Failing is so powerful. And if we can learn to apologize when we've made a mistake, then that teaches other people that it's okay to make mistakes, and that it's okay to apologize. It's okay to be wrong, because we can't be right all the time. Like we don't do everything and we can't be right.
As much as we like the thought of being right all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot to bring yourself up out of it and to think, right, I don't like it. I'm not accepting it. I don't particularly want to live with that in my life, and I actually really like it if it could be something else. But it's here, it's happening, and actually it's an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for me to evolve in whatever way that is. And just those are the subtle kind of almost mind tricks that you can do, aren't they? That kind of bring you out of the sludge and the lower energy of when you're stuck in this issue with family or jobs or, you know, whatever it is that's going on. I listened to something really interesting the other day, actually, and it was about forgiving people. And forgiveness is such a weighted word when somebody is in an environment or is being through a traumatic experience, and you kind of say, oh, well, you know, forgive them because it's going to be better for you, and la la la. And in theory, yes, okay, that's right, but that word is so loaded. And I was listening to something the other day, and it was about not to forgive people but to release them. And I was like, oh, I like release. Release feels much lighter and better, and just like, you know, I am releasing you from my life, and it just like entangling all the crap with it. And I think that's a nicer way for people to get to a space of being okay with where they're at, essentially. And actually that doesn't mean that you have to be okay with those around you that have caused you harm, but you have to feel that peace within yourself. And it's important that you find that place, because these things will eat you alive and literally will cause huge physical damage if you're kind of left in that state of bitterness. I've seen a few people recently who are struggling with the physical effects of having such a wealth of anger contained in their body that they've kind of had towards somebody. It's just really not worth it.
100%. I really agree with you, Tammy, about the forgiving thing. So many times I've experienced my clients coming to me, they've had a negative traumatic experience, and they've been told by someone, like whether that's a family member or a therapist or a counselor, coach, or someone, is just to forgive and forget, or just to forgive that person because it's better for them to forgive, better for them. And I say, F no. If you don't have to forgive anyone. And I know this from a personal perspective because I've been told this, and I've had a very close family member who's been told this by a therapist, by a professional, mental health professional, that they have to just forgive their abuser. And I feel like that is extremely dangerous because it dismisses their experience, it invalidates their experience. And if I observe a client going through something difficult, I want to meet them where they are and tell them, if that person who treated you that way, like, I want to stand up for them and I want to protect them. And the last thing I'm going to tell them to do is to forgive, because that invalidates their experience. And it also just says what happened to them wasn't as important as they think it is. And that forgiveness is easy. It's really not easy. And that actually grieving it, I find, is really important. Like grieving the person that you were before you had that experience, but grieving the person that you might have been if you didn't have that experience. Grieving that inner child. Like I do a lot of inner child grief personally and with clients where I'm grieving that little girl or little boy, whoever it is, and who they could have been, and what that relationship with that parent could have been like. Or we can't invalidate people any longer by saying, oh, you'll be fine. Remember to look on the bright side. It could be a lot worse. What other things do we say? Just forgive them. Okay, you'll be okay. You know, look up. Just keep your chin up. all of these sayings that I just want to be like, God, F off.
Yeah.
You don't know how hard this feels. You don't know how bad this feels. And we're programmed as women, especially to be fixers. We have to come in, and if someone's going through something difficult, we can't just be with them in their pain. Sometimes that is the most beneficial thing we can do. And you talking about your relationship, in my relationship, whenever we see each other in emotional pain, we ask the question, do you want me to help you fix it, or do you want
I love this.
yeah. Do you want me to give you a solution? Shall we find a
Yeah.
solution for this, or do you want a cuddle?
Yeah,
You want me
I
to just
love this. I found on social media a little while ago, and it was just really hit home, because I don't know about you, but I'm naturally a fixer. I want to help. I like to find solutions. And actually, it hadn't really occurred to me that sometimes people don't want a fucking solution. They want a hug. So when I
yeah,
stumbled across this, and I was just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And I kind of said to my other half, let's do this, because I naturally need to fix. And sometimes when you've got stuff going on, actually what you really need is a hug, but I'm in fix mode. So you just need to remind me. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to hug me. And then, how many marriages suffer,
yeah.
become relationships suffer because of that one kind of thing. It's just gonna make such a huge difference to a relationship, isn't it? To be to just that simple hug or fix.
It's validation. It's what it is. It's validation. It's seeing the person where they are without thinking that they could be better. Whenever I see my partner going through something difficult and I ask him, do we go into solution mode or should we go into just being mode? And if we're just in being mode, I still see my loved one as the bright light that he is, but at the same time there's no pressure for him to be anything that he's not in that moment right there. He's allowed to feel what he needs to feel. That has come from my own realization that when I go into fix mode, I'm taking that other person's power away, because it's not up to me to fix how they are emotionally, right? It's up to them to do the work. And if I go in there with fix mode, then I'm disallowing their progress and their process to learn how to soothe and how to transform their emotions, right? I can soothe them, yes, but it's all for us. It's always an inside job. It always has to come from us first. And especially when we're with younger people, they're experiencing something different and we go into fix modes, then we're disallowing their process to learn how to go through their emotions, how to learn how to go from feeling bad to feeling better. And if we can just be with them while they're feeling bad and see them in their feeling bad, then that could help speed up the process of them feel
And
better.
that's such a lovely way to be with your kids, when your young children and your teens are going through stuff, is to teach them to have that self-realization of what do I need in this moment. Like, mum, I need a hug, or mum, help me find solutions. It's such a beautiful concept, and so massively helpful on an emotional level. It's just blew my mind coming across that. I can just see how beneficial it is for relationships, whatever relationships they are. It just absolutely doesn't make any difference. It's just, one of the nicest things I think I've heard this year. Definitely.
When we're fixing, we're human doings. When we're being, we're human beings. And human beings is who we really are.
Absolutely. So I want to know more about your course, how you're going to run it, the layout, what people need to do. Give us all of those details.
Absolutely. So it's a 4-week course and it starts on Wednesday, the 3rd of May at 7 p.m. UK GMT time. And it runs every Wednesday after that for the next 3 Wednesdays after that. So it's 4 weeks every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. UK time. It's going to be about 2 hours every class, and we're working from a workbook. So everyone who signs up gets a workbook, and access to a support group. So you get lifetime access. So I would love to run this course. I feel like this course is going to be a really important catalyst for people to transform their trauma, especially, and whatever else they've got going on in their current circumstances, to feel safe to put themselves out there, whether that's in relationships, in work, in friendships, with money, asking for more money, whatever it is. When you sign up, you will get lifetime access to the rest of the times that I do this course. 4 weeks of the course will be, if you miss a recording, for example, if you miss a live session, you'll get the recording, which will be on YouTube. You'll get sent our YouTube link to rewatch the recording as many times as you like. But I will be adding more modules and doing this course over and over again. So when you purchase a ticket for this course for this one time, you will have access to it every other time that I do it, just because I feel like it is a continual process. And also I love the idea that you can invest in it once and then that's it. And the price for the course is £222, and it may be going up again in the future. So next time I do it later on in the year, the price might increase. But if you pay this time 222, then you won't have to ever pay anymore ever again. So just because this is the first time that I'm doing this course, so I really want to make it as accessible to as many people as I can. There's going to be 10 steps in this course. And the workbook really is those 10 steps, and the 10 steps we're going to be doing every week. So we're going to be doing the same 10 steps every week. And we're really going to be, all about repetition, because we're building new neural pathways. We've spent decades building neural pathways, repeating the same things over and over again. And the idea is to break off those paths and create a new path. So it's all about repetition. But every time we ask the same questions, we get different answers. We're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the work. So we're doing the difficult, heavy stuff of like letting go of our baggage about feeling safe to be seen, but we're also implementing, embedding, and calibrating to new perspectives, new beliefs, new ways of thinking and feeling about how actually it is safe to be seen. Not only is it safe for me to be seen, but it feels exciting for me to put myself out there. I'm excited to put myself out there. I want to put myself out there. It feels like if I put myself out there, then I'm going to help others, or I'm going to inspire others. I'm going to be the one to do this and this and this and this. So really going from a place of fear to a place of excitement and inspiration.
Love it, love it, love it. It's going to be so good. So good. I feel like we should have another chat again. I feel like we could talk in so many different areas and just pull out so much good stuff for people, and just like inspired chats. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And just raising awareness, helping people to see that there are other ways of living their life that actually are just blissful and exciting, and all of that jazz, really. So thank you for joining me on my beautiful yellow sofa.
Thank you so much for having me, Tammy. Thanks for having me on your beautiful yellow sofa. Oh, it's been so great. And yeah, thank you so much for giving the opportunity to chat with you. And
absolutely, yeah. And we'll put all the links, everything that people need to know about the course and how they join will be linked to this video. So please sign up, guys. It is going to be so good. Take care, my love, and we will chat very soon.
yes, bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.